Tomorrow we celebrate the feast of St. Mark, the gospel writer and evangelist. Now, according to Christian tradition, Mark held a close relationship with St. Peter, who referred to Mark as his son in his first letter, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 13. In fact, it was Peter that baptized Mark and brought Mark into the faith. Now, many of the early church fathers believed Mark was the interpreter of Peter. We would refer to that position in our own present day and age as Peter's secretary. Essentially, Mark wrote down all that Peter told him about the life, the ministry, and the teachings of Jesus Christ. Therefore, Peter was the primary source of Mark's gospel. So it begs the question, so what do we know about Mark in a personal sense? Well, he was born 3 to 10 years after Jesus was born, in a town called Cyrene, which is in present-day Libya. He was born into a family where both his parents were Jewish as well as Roman citizens. Now, many people refer to him as John Mark, Mark being his Roman name, John being his Jewish name. Mark was also a cousin of the missionary Barnabas. Mark joined St. Paul and St. Barnabas on their first missionary journey to Antioch in 44 AD. Now, when the group reached Cyprus, Christian tradition holds that Mark left prematurely and returned back to Jerusalem. Speculation for him leaving from the mission early varies. It could have been his immaturity, that maybe he was not prepared for the hardships of the work, or he wasn't prepared for missionary life. Now, this incident may have caused Paul to question whether Mark could be reliable as a missionary. And this created a great disagreement between Paul and Barnabas, and it led to Paul refusing Mark's accompaniment on that second journey to the churches of Asia Minor. However, it can be assumed that the troubles between Mark and Paul did not last very long, because when Paul was first in prison, Mark visited Paul as one of his trusted companions, as attested to in Paul's letter to the Colossians, chapter 4, verse 10. Scripture scholars believe that Mark was with Peter in Rome in the early 60s. Now, this was a pivotal time in Christianity because during this time, the persecutions of Christians in Rome began. It's estimated that between the years 64 and 67 AD, both St. Peter and St. Paul were martyred in Rome. Shortly afterwards, Mark completed his gospel and promulgated it to the early church throughout the world. Whenever you see a picture of Mark, typically a winged lion is right next to him. Now, the lion represents a king, in this case, Jesus Christ. It's important to know that Mark's gospel begins in the wilderness. More to it, it is derived from the description of St. John the Baptist as a voice of one crying out in the desert. Mark chapter 1, verse 3. Furthermore, the wilderness implies a jungle, whereby the lion is the king. And it points to the fact that Jesus Christ is the unconquered king, who has conquered sin and death. Mark fulfilled in his life what we are all called to do as followers of Jesus Christ, to proclaim to all people the good news. And particularly, Mark's way was by writing his gospel. For others, it may be proclaiming the good news by music, drama, poetry, or by simply teaching children around a kitchen table. How we live out our faith is the best way to proclaim the gospel of Mark each and every day of our life. Stay spiritually strong, everybody.